Hello and welcome to Movie Buffs, a show that covers the best action films of all time. I'm your host, Shani B. You can find me on all the socials at Shani B Movies.
And I'm your other host, Cisco, aka Misfit Minded. You can find me on Twitter at rampage_misfit, and my movie pages at misfit_minded on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter.
Today we're talking about the 1982 epic Conan the Barbarian, starring the one and only Arnold Schwarzenegger, one of our favorite guys. If you
One and
haven't
only.
seen it, yes, if you haven't seen it, it follows the saga of Conan, the title character, who, after being orphaned by a snake god and his followers, aims to exact revenge and also rescue a kidnapped princess.
Mm,
It's a full movie. What did
yeah.
you think? I gotta hear your thoughts.
No, yeah, Epic is definitely what I was thinking of while watching it. It is a lot of movie. Little too much, I would say. Like I think you hit it on the head with like it's a revenge tale mixed with a heist movie, mixed with saving the daughter movie. Like it's just a lot of things at once
Mhm.
that I think kind of hurt it a little bit. But I will say that it still exceeded, I guess, my expectations because I have seen another early Arnold movie. It might have been his first movie where he plays a famous Greek god Hercules. I don't know if you've ever seen this.
I
Hercules.
haven't seen it, but I wanted
Yeah,
to.
it's called Hercules in New York. It's pretty bad.
It doesn't
Um,
yeah.
yeah, it's kind of like played as like a fish out of water, like zany comedy type thing, but like Arnold didn't really know how to speak English that well at that point, and so I don't know, it just didn't work that well. But
Doing his
this one,
best.
yeah, this one I thought he did a really good job. Like, doesn't have a whole lot of dialogue, just like Terminator and all those other movies, but using the best of his strengths. Literally, he just looks like Hercules, basically. So it's like no brainer that he would be Conan the Barbarian.
Mhm.
And just yeah, reminded me of other revenge epics that I really love, like Gladiator or The Northman that came out last year. Just really good films about these guys that have nothing but revenge on their a few different stops along the way. It's not all just like there's some love. There's a love story here and there. He has like a bromance with somebody he meets along the way. So I like those type of like epic journeys.
Yeah.
So I appreciated it with that, and a lot of the technical aspects I thought were really well done as well for the time. So what about you? What did you think of it?
I agree. With Arnold's, performance, just like you're saying, it was so surprising to watch him be so early in his career. And I think in the earlier parts of the film where there is more room for the zany, fun stuff, he is able to embody that. And then as the story goes on, when things do become a little bit more serious, I think you really do see a transition in his performance. So I agree. I like these kinds of movies a lot, that sort of overarching journey of it's a coming of age story, both in the revenge model of, this guy seeking to get vengeance for what happened to his family, but then also like learning how to just be a guy with friends and a gal. And
Yeah,
it reminded me sort of the new Dungeons and Dragons. I don't know if you have checked it
haven't
out
seen it
yet.
yet.
It's
No.
really fun. It's,
Okay.
it's not the best movie of all time by any means, but it was a great time. And there were parts of this that reminded me of it, just how he and Valeria and the other guy kind of went around doing all kinds of missions or whatever and having fun and getting jewels. And so I agree. I was expecting this movie to maybe just be very like intense and straightforward, kind of like The Northman, because I see your
Yeah.
comment about the similarities there.
Yeah.
And so it was a nice surprise that there was some fun in the mix and that this was kind of was goofy at certain parts.
The campiness was very much expected. I think like as soon as it said like produced by Dino De Laurentiis or whatever, that's
Yes,
always that's always like a surefire sign. Like, okay, we're in for a campy, goofy, low budge time.
we're also
Uh,
in for lots of boobs, so get ready.
that as well. That as well. Signs of the times, but also yeah, also a Dino staple. Um, and then yeah, just the opening up with the Nietzsche quote. With,
Yes.
I was like, man, they're really setting the tone. Whatever doesn't kill us makes us stronger. And then the opening, maybe 20 minutes has a lot of, steel is the man's tool, and this
Yes.
is left over from the gods, and this is what makes us godly. And
Mhm.
then you see Arnold being built up like steel, through montages, through like, his family getting slaughtered at the beginning is like really, like I said, like the Northman, pretty much that
Mhm.
same formula, setting up like his journey that you root for. And yeah, that James Earl Jones, I can't say enough about how
Best.
best villain guy. I mean, like
All time.
he doesn't even have to say anything. He just like comes up. He has those piercing ocean blue eyes,
Mhm.
and yeah, and then he just you don't know what he's gonna do because he's just like like very slow moving, and then just turns around,
Still.
beheads the mom. I was like, whoa, was
Yeah,
not
with a
ready for that.
beautiful spin, an
Yeah,
amazing spin.
and that wig just flowing too as he does it.
Dude, the wigs. I mean, that's what I love about this movie too, is that it's not just an epic in terms of the story, but it's also treated with the respect of an epic film with costumes and filmmaking and
Yep.
sets and all of that shit. And the wigs are so good. James Earl Jones is always wearing a helmet. All of his characters involve some sort of really badass helmet. And
Yeah.
so I appreciated that too.
Well,
Lots of
like
surprises.
I was thinking about that too because I just watched Return of the Jedi in theaters, and
Nice.
that isn't James Earl Jones in the suit. It's a different
Right.
actor, but like, and I get that because they probably wanted somebody like taller and like whatever.
Yeah,
But like,
whatever.
I feel like his like physique in this is like just as badass, and like it's like royalty. It's like he's like like chubbier, but like when he moves in a way that is like a snake. So then when he does get into that transformation at the end, it's like
Yes.
so I wasn't expecting it, but it wasn't like it didn't take me out of the movie because his performance is so like sleuth like or whatever, if that makes any sense.
1000%. I think that's
Yeah.
why he's one of my all-time favorite actors and why you're right that he's one of the best villains because even though he doesn't get to do too much physical work in Jedi, he's legit doing a kind of physical work that cannot be missed. He's building the snake motif the entire
Mhm.
way through. And it's true, it's not just in his dialogue, it is in his eyes and it is in his physicality.
Yeah. No, and then yeah, what I was saying with the technical aspects of it, I think you hit on the head too. Like the for as like we said, low budget as it kind of looks at times. I mean, I thought the costume design was like amazing.
Yes.
The makeup and gore effects really well done.
Mhm.
The production design, like top to bottom, you could tell they really tried to like build this world out, and I think
Mhm.
that always helps. Um, a little more than I was kind of wondering about like recently why we haven't seen more because they used to pump these out a lot more,
Yes. Mhm.
and I just think like the digital versions of this, like I was thinking of like Clash of the Titans and that whole like trilogy. I think they made of those. It's like it just
Yeah.
doesn't the look of it doesn't look as good, even though it's like, yeah, it's like more low budget.
Mhm.
Actually having like that, you can go out and feel what they're wearing,
The
especially like
textures.
the snakeskin, all the snakeskin stuff was really dope to me. I thought it was,
Ye
yeah.
True, yeah, the, like, actually using the special effects and the prosthetics on the with the makeup, but also, like, the literal big ol' snakes that are there, and sort of doing that thing where when they use CG, it's because they're using it for something they wouldn't otherwise be able to create. So it's like when he's dealing with the
Mhm.
witch, which again, I'm like, The Northman, this movie, The Northman, when he's dealing with the witch
Oh
and there's,
man.
like, that very '80s effect that everyone used to
Yeah.
be magic or whatever, that I feel like I'll always be okay with, even though it looks cheesy, because it's so clear that they only did that because there wasn't a practical solution, and if there was a practical solution, they would have done that.
I want to like go deeper into the digital effects conversation, but we do have to stop and talk about not one but two of Arnold's sex scenes in this movie.
Yeah, of the 3, there will be
Is it
3
another?
altogether. Yeah,
Oh yeah.
technically, when he's, like, in the slave space and they're
Oh,
basically
true, true,
treating him
true.
like a horse
Yeah,
who's
3,
breeding.
3. Yeah,
Yeah,
you're right, you're
yeah.
right, you're right. I forgot about that early one because it is
We
like
get
they kind of cut away from it. but
Yeah, but
yeah,
it's there,
it's
and we
free.
get
Yeah.
his whole history and his sexual history. This movie, it's complete.
I do now that you bring up that first one, I was really cracking up because it was like the only reason I feel like that was in there is because it was like he learned the way of the ladies or whatever, and it's like, oh, so now that when we have the next two sex scenes, we know as an audience we couldn't
Yes.
have figured that out. He was trained in the
Mhm.
way of the ladies.
So good, and he yeah, and, women were sort of brought to him because
Oh,
of, what he is as a warrior, and that's what's kind of cool just about this strange character that Arnold created within Conan,
yeah.
'cause what in that sex scene, the best part of it is that, like, this woman comes in and she's, like, a little bit scared, and they're like, "Here's a boobs,"
Yep.
and she's like, "Oh, my boobs," and then, he just, like, lays her down soups gently and is just, like, smiling. He, like, smirks like, "Here we go, little lady." It's the most interesting
Oh, I'm crying.
thing, and it's like
I'm
only
crying.
Arnold, maybe The Rock, I feel like he has this very interesting kind of chemistry with women sometimes, but that scene was great, all the
Well,
sex
yeah,
scenes,
and, like,
so good.
even before that, like, we could talk about this one sex scene for, like, an hour, I feel like.
All of
Um,
them.
but, like, yeah, like you said, she's brought in boobies, and then, like, you get this moment where he, like, takes, like, the bear rug or whatever, and he, like, covers her up, like, "Hey, hey, guys, this don't
Be
look like
cool.
that's yeah, be cool about it." But then he just, like, puts her, like, behind not much, like, they can still see them and, like, proceeds to have sex with her, so it was like, I get that, like, it's like, in this time, that was a nice gesture, but it was still kind of like, you're still fucking her in front of all these
Pro
people, and it's still weird.
Yeah, yeah, like they say, progress is slow,
Yeah.
so I agree.
I thought he
It's
was just gonna,
true.
like, cover her up and then, like, wait it out or something till they left, or I don't know, I
I
just
thought
was
for sure he would be like, "Nah, girl, we don't have to," like, I
yeah.
was expecting something a little lighter, but then he was sort of like, "It's true though, still lay down, like,
And then
we will still do it."
I still have an obligation as a warrior to do this, so
That's what's kind of
yeah.
awesome about the next sex scene though, if we can pivot
The
to
witch?
when he meets the
The witch
witch,
one?
like,
Oh, that was
first
my
of
favorite
all
one. That was my favorite
yes,
one, yeah.
saw none of that coming, none of that coming, which yes, yes, I need more sex scenes like that in
Uh,
movies, but it made me be like, "Oh, man, I really wish that, in The Northman that, what's his name? Skarsgård
yeah.
also hooked up with his witch," because I loved the
Oh,
basically, like, what it showed,
it was
how
Bjork. Bjork was the
yeah.
witch, right? Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
hell yeah. But, like, the vulnerability of him being naive when he meets the witch, which here in a Dino De Laurentiis film will always involve sex, but, like, also
Mhm.
existed in The Northman. Like, the witch was basically saying, "You're gonna have to make a more mature decision in your journey if you're gonna do it right." And, the witch in this story is not exactly doing the same, but she is predicting that he's gonna need to be a warrior. So
Yeah.
stallion first in bed, and then we'll hit the field after that.
I had, like, a really funny like, the reference I had for this scene was,
Don't be a
oh
menace.
god. Yes, yes, exactly.
I thought of it
Uh,
immediately too.
yeah, where where he's, like, sleeping with a girl, she turns into, like, a demon
Dude,
mid-sex. Mid
champagne makes me go crazy. That's maybe one of the best parts of that movie, and I think it must have been inspired, right? Like, if
Yeah.
Wayne's Brothers, let us know if that was part of the story because that I thought of that too.
Yeah, it was very stylized the way they did it, where, like, all the lights turn blue and, like,
Her
they, like,
eyes
stump
changed.
yeah, and then but then and this happens a lot in the story too, which made me laugh every time, I think adding to that kind of campiness, like we were talking about, where, like, they're rolling around kind of struggling, not in the sexual way, like, once he realizes he's a witch and is, like, trying to kill him,
Yeah.
and then he just, like, throws her into the fire. And
It is.
the image of Arnold, like anytime he does something that like normally for us would not be funny because he is so strong and like just him doing a little put like throw into the fire, she like flies into the
Yes.
fire.
Yes. Yeah, it's a
It was
little
really
bit
funny. It was really
yeah.
funny. I don't know.
That's exactly it. There's like a kind of charm where there was danger and excitement in that scene, and then a little bit of camp comedy at the same time, and still value. I
Mhm.
think what's annoying about no sex scenes at all now is that we miss that like some of them had value, and
Yeah.
I wouldn't say that it's like these ones are like super valuable, but they are at least occurring in valuable places.
Well, that
Like
was
the
like
first. Go
that
ahead.
was
Go
like
ahead.
a lesson of like, you can't trust anybody, and they even say that in the movie, like you only thing you can trust is steel, not man, woman, or beast or whatever. So that was
Mhm.
like kind of dealt with that lesson that he had to learn for himself. And then
Well,
the
and, like,
last sex scene
the
with
first woman
yeah, go
hold
ahead.
on one sec, because it definitely ties in, but,
Let's
like,
go, let's
the
go.
first woman he was with, he led, the second woman he was with basically almost assaulted him, and so
Yeah.
when he gets to Valeria, they're gonna have sex together.
Mm. True. Yeah, you do see the progression, and like that was like the most, I would say, out of all three of the sex scenes, that's the one we see the most traditional, romantic, two people like in
Moves.
love. And I do like how they set that up too, though, where like he gives her like the biggest gem from their, when
Yeah,
they
their
robbed.
take or whatever.
Yeah. And, like, it was just all unspoken stuff, and then, like, yeah, the next scene, it's, like, by the fireplace, very similar to, like, the witch scene, but
But
this
this
time,
time.
yeah, this time it's
Mhm.
consensual, this time it's real.
Exactly,
Yeah.
exactly, and I think that's also, like, the overarching journey of what Conan's doing because he's not like the other heroes. Like, in the end of The Northman, he's gotta trade his life for vengeance, and what's kind of cool about Conan is, like, he's learning the difference between the kind of vengeance that you'd trade your life for and kinda blind, and maybe the more meaningful, justice, I guess?
Mhm,
Like, I might say in the end, he gives James Earl Jones a kind of justice because he's misusing his power and he is abusing and exploiting his followers. And so he's not just killing him because he killed his parents. You know what I
yeah,
mean? And I think, like, in The Northman, his uncle's just like a total piece of shit. Like, he's not
mhm,
quite misappropriating everything. He's just like an asshole who did something really fucked up specifically to our homie. So I like the
mhm.
distinction there.
Right, and, if I did have to just, like, again, like, pick anything in this movie apart, I would just say, like, barring the time, the treatment of women in general, children and animals, I'm gonna group them all together, into one category. Not great. Like again, some scenes where he's like he kicks a chicken, I think was like some of them are played for laughs. They're pretty
Mm,
funny for like I know you put down where he punches the camel, and it was like,
right in the
dude, that
face.
was a dick move. That was
You're
you
right in the
that was really
face.
unnecessary. Like, if you wanted to bump it a little bit, like, get out of my way, I understand you were drunk, like, that happens,
This is
but
like a
yeah.
serious right hook, like a haymaker at
And
that
it and it
thing.
and it, like, falls down, and, like, that's supposed to be, like, a laugh moment, like, "Oh, yeah, he
It's
knocked
not
out that
okay.
camel," and it's like, yeah, that was tough. And then another line where it was like, "All women are s" I don't say all women, but Arnold, I think in the same sequence where they're drunk, and he just goes, "They're all sluts," and it's
Y
like, "Oh, that was
Yeah, I
random,"
don't love
like
that. True, yeah, don't love that either, and as we've been saying, progress is slow, but
Yeah.
it's true, like, in those barbaric tales, it's interesting to try to find a way to, try to try to authentically portray these types of folks and also try to find some kind of heart in there, which is why I like the progression of who he is by the time he gets to Valeria, who basically he treats as an equal, if not
Mhm.
sometimes maybe even more powerful than him. Like she
Yeah.
she can take charge in a way that often women characters in these movies don't get the chance to.
Yeah, I really liked her character, like, even when the first time they meet where she's like, basically like, "You guys didn't even bring rope, like, what kinda amateurs," you know what I mean? Like, she's just, like,
Yes.
immediately shit talking them and being like, "You guys are we're all thieves, but you guys are unprofessional thieves," like, and that's even worse somehow.
It's
Uh,
true. Yeah, she's a good character and the actress
yeah.
was really fun.
She was, and beautiful, and that, which
Gotta be.
again, yep, all the ladies that Arnold gets in this movie are, but perhaps probably she's the most, and for good reason,
Mhm.
because that's who wins over his heart in the end. And then, yeah, the only other two I felt like, along with the length, it did kind of drag at the end a little bit. I was struggling to stay awake I'm like,
It's true.
we could have used like one epic battle scene or something where, I don't know, he comes across a village that was wronged by the snake people, and they're like,
Mhm.
yeah, fuck those guys, they stole all of our steel. We want to get revenge too on them, and then they, clash at the end, something like that. Like it just felt like they built up all this goodwill, and when it
And they
got to
went
the
there
yeah.
exactly, they went there twice, like, they went
Hmm.
there to
Yeah,
rescue the princess, and they, like, basically defeated everybody rescuing the princess, and then he went back to get revenge again.
yeah,
So it was a little bit sort of like, I
because
thought
they
this
made the
would be
distinction like this is the heist only, not revenge, I guess. But like still, it was weird. It was weirdly paced at the last half, and
and
then
it was
but
flirting with disaster also because it results in some consequences that are not so cool.
mhm. Yeah, and then the last thing I had was just all the booby traps he was setting up. I was like, dude, Predator had to have got a lot of their stuff from this movie, because that was like straight
Directly.
up, yeah, straight up some of their like, where the
The
wood stake
sticks.
going through people, the sticks that he's like sharpening and all that stuff. It was cool, but it just immediately made me think of Predator.
Mhm.
Um, and I also like didn't think they showed enough of those traps working. I wanted to see, like, none of the guys got like impaled like by the sticks. I was just like, did any of those like sharp sticks work?
Yeah, yeah, what's going on with this montage that where we're not gonna get the payoff of it? Because I was thinking like, "Oh, he's setting it up, so we'll get
Yeah.
a
There's a
payoff."
couple big ones. There's a couple big ones that make it
Yeah, in
worthwhile
the
sequence still, which we'll talk about, I feel like, in the best kills section, possibly. But like, yeah, I still was like, come on. Like, I guess I needed that, like, Arnold, knowing we're probably stained knowing that Arnold is such an action hero now,
mm,
compared to back then. He was still a young up and comer, that like we know what he's capable of. We know he could have
mhm,
carried an action scene. And even the one scene where he's training with the sword by himself, I was like, that's Arnold. That's not a body double. Like, he trained with the sword. He looks
mhm.
very capable of filming a sword scene with it.
Yes.
I would have liked to see it personally. I don't know. Those are my only things though. But yeah, what did
It's
you have?
true. I mean, I definitely I wanna watch, Conan the Destroyer so I can see if
Yeah,
he's
the
able to, like,
sequel.
step it up for sure. Because I agree, it is surprising to sort of watch him and have an idea of what his style is, but also see him basically developing it at the same time. So I agree, like, that there's both, like, a little bit of an issue there because I was expecting a little bit more, but then at the same time an amazing surprise because he did so well with the more grounded stuff too. But I'm with you,
Mhm.
like mostly my nitpicks with so many of these movies has to do with how ladies end up getting portrayed in them,
It's tough.
which
We got
totally
Valeria though, which
understandable.
is like, okay,
It's true.
we got one in this movie, so
That's
that's
right.
sometimes that's even more than we get in most of these.
That's
So
very true. Yeah, occasionally we don't even get a taste of something like that. So,
yeah,
yes, I like that for sure. And yeah, I think just being able to revisit and get so amped on whatever was going to be ahead was most enjoyable here. So I think I had I had like lots of room to be like, okay, the ending is sort of what it is. There's another movie after this, fine. And, like
I
movies
wonder
being
if they ran out of
influenced.
like money or something. It kind of felt that way a little bit. Maybe we're like, we got to reuse this set at the end. Like that's why they go back. Maybe like something like,
Yeah.
it
I
just
mean,
felt
I
very weird.
I definitely think that the effect of James Earl Jones's transformation, I definitely feel like when you're watching the way that's cut into the film, you're sort of like, "I
Yeah,
bet they thought that was gonna look better than it
yeah.
ended up,"
It's
which still totally admirable, Soup's
yeah.
ambitious, but
I didn't know I was when I tell you my jaw was on the floor, like, because I'm like, why are they extreme close-ups on his face? And then
yeah,
like
what's
his
he
eyes,
doing?
his eyes got the little snake thing, and I was like, oh, maybe that's a cool stylistic choice. And then I was like,
Mhm.
oh no, he's turning into a snake very quickly.
Yes, yes.
As it keeps staying on him and like cutting to different stages of that transformation. So I mean, I admire that. I admire that they went for it. um I think the giant snake scene that he killed earlier on in the movie was a lot better. I think because they cut around it, and
Yeah.
again, the gore looks really gnarly every time somebody gets decapitated. It's like, no, there's blood in there. It's not like one of
Yes.
those what
Yep.
we see nowadays in the Marvel movies where, like,
Yeah, bunch of stabs and no red color
no,
whatsoever.
yeah,
Yeah, I feel
Wolverine
like
chopping people up, and it's like, where's
yeah,
the blood?
nothing. Exactly, I feel like every time there was even a tiny little bit of a cut of any kind, there was, like, squirting blood.
Yes, yes, I appreciated it. I appreciated it.
Same.
Um, Yeah, and then I did wanna just mention before we move on, that, yeah, the sequel, I haven't seen the sequel either. They also remade it with Jason Momoa, I remember.
Yeah,
Don't
I
think
don't
that's probably not good. It's kinda what we're talking about. That was like the Clash of the Titans era, I wanna say.
mhm.
And then, yeah, recently in like a interview, they asked Arnold, I sent that to you, that, what about the movie, and he said that he would do another one. And I guess there is like a script that is like for a sequel
Okay.
that's already there out there. It would just be up to like getting a director to do it. So I would love to see it.
Oh,
I would love to see it. And the way that he described it too is like an Unforgiven, where like Conan's old now. I mean, like at the end of the movie, he's like old Conan with the
yeah.
beard on his throne, and it just like, the text is just like, he went on many other adventures, and it's like they left it open for
For the
sequels and stuff.
stuff.
Yeah,
Mhm.
so I would love to see it personally. Like I know he has a new, I think, Netflix show or one of those streaming
Yeah, new
shows.
action something. Mhm.
But yeah, I mean, all these like Harrison Ford's doing Indiana Jones, and all these guys that we love are going back to their franchises. Like, no more Terminator, please. I'm done with. I think we've seen enough Arnold
We
the
have.
Terminator. I think Arnold has said he's done with Terminator, but Conan, I mean, there's only two, and
Mhm.
they're both like what 80s, so I think they could do it. Yeah.
Yeah, I'd like to see the epic make a return, and I think Arnold is a great person to sail it back in for sure.
Yep. And then yeah, as far as like the filmmaking, the movie was directed by John Milius, who is a mostly like a writer. Like he directed this and Red Dawn.
Mhm.
But then like, yeah, he wrote Apocalypse Now, Clear and Present Danger, and Red Dawn. And then this movie was also co-written by Oliver Stone. That was another credit when it popped up. I was like, whoa,
King.
did not.
King.
But he was working in the 80s. He was like, there's a lot of stuff that you would not expect where it's like, Scarface written by Oliver Stone. Like he was working
Right?
it. And then yeah, Oliver Stone, obviously Scarface, Platoon, JFK,
Mhm.
lot of classics under his belt, especially in the 80s. So
Yeah,
yeah,
there's a collab here.
so as far as the sequences that stood out to you, what were some of your favorites? There's a lot we could talk about.
Yeah, I mean, I think the snake sequence you talked about for sure. I
Mhm.
really liked the invasion of Conan's village because it was such a great high standard for this being an epic. And when I was watching it, I was just feeling like, yeah, yeah, this is what I wanted. And this movie's giving it to me. And
Yep.
so I really, really liked that one. Like the dad, the dogs kind of coming in
Oh
viciously
yeah,
killing
that
his dad.
was
Like,
that was
holy
brutal.
smokes, very gnarly, and as you mentioned, the beautiful, pirouette backspin decapitation.
Mhm.
Just a lot of basically stuff that sets us up for the continuation of all of the sequences being, amplified in this way, which is why sort of the end is kind of disappointing because it starts so high.
Yeah, the dogs, I also have to mention in the armor as well. I was like, love that. I don't like that they're
Mhm.
killing this guy, this innocent dude,
But
but
it looks real cool.
those dogs look pretty badass. I can't lie. Um, yeah, I mean that whole ravaging sequence at the beginning is definitely sets the tone. I love where Arnold is like in the pit, getting trained.
Yes.
Again in these different outfits. Like there's some that have like these leather straps with like knives coming out of it, and there's like different all these the costuming is mixed with the weapons was really cool. I felt like all throughout. Yeah, where they steal the stone and he fights the giant snake, I thought was
Mhm.
definitely a highlight. um and then yeah,
Yeah,
and then
like
like,
the
Yeah,
The
go ahead.
sequence when she's bringing him back and they got all
Oh,
the,
yeah,
like,
yeah.
runes all over him and stuff and, like, the spells and everything.
They're fighting
Just
the spirits. She's like, "No, get
yes.
away."
Dude, you
I don't know
gotta
how
give it
that
up.
works logistically, but
I have to give it up for those performances because, yeah, I think those sequences they were just surprising. I just
Yeah.
so much of this movie was unexpected because there were lots of good action sequences, but like the artistry,
Mm,
like the sequence of like that in that opening sequence when the mom's decapitated and the way she like falls out of frame and like
mhm.
drifts out of his hand and that
Yeah.
the visual significance of that moment both like existing in the action as it took place, but like you could feel it in the filmmaking. I was not expecting to basically geek out. Um
I also put where, another shot that stood out to me was when they, their first, trouble is coming for the kid Conan and the village is when,
mhm.
like, this you see this painted out Viking looking dude on top of a rock, and then there's, like, the sun shining behind him, and I was like, "Man, that shot looks great, but I know that this village is in for trouble." Like, it was like that
Exactly.
juxtaposition, like you're saying, was like, again, really unexpected, and not expect for that to come from this movie out of all movies, but here it
But I
is.
will take it. Yes, I will take it. Yeah, I guess that's what I again, like I always say this, but that's why action movies are so good is that when a good director and a good writer come together and action is just going to complement an amazing
Hmm.
story or an amazing kind of emotional journey or something, it's so rewarding. And so I feel like each of the sequences kind of gets better and even in the end sequence there's still some like good value of just the millions of extras that were there.
Yeah.
I can't imagine how expensive and annoying it must have been to
That last
wrangle.
scene with all the robed people in the white robes,
Yes.
yeah, that
Oh
must
my
have been
gosh.
crazy.
So
Um,
expensive.
yeah, like there's a Twitter like thread that's went viral over the week, too, where someone was like, and I agree with this too. We always talk about this, but it was like that feeling when you're watching some shitty 80s random movie or 90s movie, but it has like the best cinematography like you've ever seen. Just because it was shot on film and they actually like filmed people doing this stuff.
Yes.
And it's like, man, we really were spoiled for a while there where we didn't know where we
Mhm.
had kids. And then you look at some of these cinematographers and they're like the best in the business. Like
It's so good.
yeah. So
It's true.
I think this would fall. I mean, the writer of Apocalypse Now making a film like this, it's like,
Exactly.
yeah.
It's sort of like how there's like an auteur nature to this movie and a commercialism to it, which
Hmm.
is also kind of like a really hard thing, I think, to strike. Like some of the Marvel movies, I think occasionally are able to do this, like especially the first Black Panther and like maybe like maybe Civil War.
Most of
Some
the
of
time, though,
them,
Marvel is the auteur, and the producers are the
that's true.
auteur.
Feige ends up, yeah.
Disney is the auteur, where yeah, it's not like you can't say that, like, yeah, Dino De Laurentiis, you expect some of those things, but I
Mm,
think he was still letting a lot of these guys, like, even we can talk about some of the cast, like
yeah.
Max von Sydow, von Sydow,
Let's
one
go.
scene delivers it like it's a Shakespeare monologue. Like
Like
I
he
was
always
like,
does.
"Jeez," I was like, "Dude, this guy, oh man, it was amazing." I was captivated by it, and it
Mhm.
was just a scene of him talking about his daughter and trying to get her, basically sending them on the mission to retrieve his daughter. So yeah, and then of course, yeah, Arnold's balancing out the humor with the, brutality. You don't want to think this guy's a psychopath, and because it's Arnold, you don't, like, you know what I mean? You
It's
see
true.
his side, like he's capable of the violence, but he's also a lover, as we see.
Yes. He's sweet in there.
Yeah, and then yeah, James Earl Jones as the big bad. I mean, he doesn't do a lot of fighting, or like we said, like a lot of movement, but like just his acting is just top notch in
Epic.
this too. Where it's like, yeah, it's all these again, low budget 80s, 90s movies, but they find the best character actors, the most classically trained Shakespearean guys,
Yep.
where it's like, dude, we do not deserve this level of acting in the Conan the Barbarian.
No. Well, but that's exactly it. Is it like what's so disappointing today because of how entertainment has sort of moved into more of a shorter form and like less attention span and all this other stuff, is it like most of the actors that transition into film, they're not coming from Broadway or the stage anymore like they used
Hmm.
to like historically in film. They're like an
Yeah,
influencer who
I
hasn't had
know.
any formal training or doesn't know the dialogue, the lingo or whatever. And I think that's something I love about Arnold is you can almost see that he's like learning in this
Hmm.
movie, that like he
Yeah.
is listening to his scene partners and he is thinking in character. And even when you're not like a really good actor, those are still the only things that make your performance feel like it's a performance rather than like just you talking.
Hmm.
And it's hard to put your finger on, but that's a kind of nuance that like not everyone has. And
Hmm.
Arnold is just a king.
Yeah.
Magic! The guy is magic.
And just in the physical peak of his life, you know what I mean? So even
Epic.
without the acting skills, he's not the most articulate guy. He makes up for it
Mhm.
with his physical performance too, and like you said, being a generous scene
Scene
partner.
partner.
Yeah,
Mhm.
I
Yeah, it's
agree.
true. And he's not always so great with chemistry with women. So I think that's why this was so fun too to see him bounce off of Sandy Bergman, the lady who played Valeria.
Hmm.
Like their rapport together was so unique because he doesn't always play like he doesn't always have a love interest who's going to be riding alongside of him. Like he's a protector in so many other roles, or he's just kind of like leading the charge and romance is happening, but it's not exactly like this where they stand equal. So I liked her performance a lot, like you were saying, because she just was like, yeah, I am equal to Arnold because Arnold is still at a point in his career where that kind of equity makes perfect sense and feels
Hmm.
right.
Yeah, she wasn't like a slave or like someone that's like, I'll see you when you get back from war, that type of
Yep.
character we've seen a million times. It's like, no, we're gonna go to war together. And like he does initially go without her to kind of protect her, but you understand that
Mhm.
decision, you know what I mean? And that leads to like the crucifixion scene and basically, yeah, him becoming Jesus in this
Yeah,
movie.
what the fuck? What the that's the yeah, I guess I should have put that in my, like, little bit of a nitpick spot just because I was like, "Dude, they can hang you from a tree, like, just buy ropes on your wrist." Like, the
Yeah,
crucifixion of it all, I was like, "Dude, this is hard this is next level." But I guess that's where the kinda magic and everything comes in, which,
because it's Arnold though,
alright.
it's not sticks, it's a huge boulder because he needs his
Yes.
muscles to stand out among the boulder.
So good. It's so good. Yeah, just, like, gnarly, and he is such a trooper because I
Yeah,
feel like that the stuff we saw him do in this movie too, just people aren't necessarily gonna let him do again. Like, he's still gonna
yeah,
always show his physique off, and, like, I think Predator is another great example of, like, him being able to use his physique for more than, like, just it.
yeah,
But that
the
crucifixion scene and
elements,
the yeah,
yeah,
and the resurrection scene were really cool because they did represent again how like he's doing a kind of tactile acting in
mhm,
this movie.
right.
And that's there in some of the emotional performances he has later, but he doesn't always get so dirty, if that makes sense.
No, not yeah, I forgot along with the snakeskin too, I forgot to mention, like, at the beginning they don't usually do it at the end as much, but, like, the beginning, there's, like, a lot of furs that they're wearing, I thought
Yes.
were super badass, even, like, around their sword, like, the sword I don't know what you call
Yeah, the
that, the sword
sheath.
holster, the sheath, yeah, is,
Hmm.
like, all made of fur, I was like, "I don't think I've ever seen that," like, that's pretty dope that
It's very
they
baller.
yeah,
Hmm.
but yeah, let's get into, the stunts and what stunts were your favorite. I guess for me, if I had to choose, I probably would go with, like, what we were talking about, like, the guerrilla, war scene at the end where he's making all the traps just because, it is from Predator 2, but, like, yeah, just the visuals of it, like, the actual blood, like you said, like, there's a scene, I think it's in that sequence where some guy's riding his horse and then he, like, just cuts him with an axe and you just see the blood, like, squirt into camera,
Yes.
and it's like, man, this is war filmmaking, that we
Hmm.
see, like, even to this day, so Yeah, I really like that. And then yeah, the one where he tricks the guy into getting impaled. Uh,
Yes,
he thinks he's got the upper hand on Conan. It's just like yeah, using his smarts and using the environment like we're talking about, um,
exactly.
compared to like just using his brute strength. Yeah. What about you?
Right, right. Yeah, I think for me, the just the firework and all the practical stunts are really what I liked the most. Like it's we don't see a lot of real fire in movies anymore. And how I know that is because when I see real fire again, I'm like, oh yeah, that's what
That's
real
what it
fire
should
looks
look
like.
like. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And so I think for me, like the fire really stood out and just the practical stunts of like that big old fake snake and the prosthetic makeup and the really
Mm,
cool idea of how the snakes, the arrows that became snakes, like the practicality of that kind of thing too, and using that for both storytelling, but also like just a cool thing, I think is what stuck out. Just
yeah.
people doing real stunts, like
You
the
put
wire work of it all.
you put the horse thing too, and that was one I had to. I was like, it made me oof. Where
Yes.
he cuts the horse's legs to make it fall forward, and that was like, man, that was I know that hurt.
I
Like,
mean, there were like several horses like
yeah,
rolling over and taking dives and stuff.
and I
And
know they're
so,
trained for that stuff. Like the Hollywood horses are different, but
but
still, it's
they
just
it's
yeah.
like we were talking about with the ladies of the films back then. If you
Mhm.
think the ladies' rights weren't there, you gotta know the animal actor rights were not there either.
Just like I said, kicking chicken, it wasn't even part of the story. It's just like, "You're in my way." Just kicks the
Exactly.
chicken.
Oof. But, like, to the same token, you're right, like, the horse stuff, it looks so good. So I
Oh, when
think
he bites the vulture when he's getting crucified.
yes, yes! Yeah,
That was
that was
fucking
a puppet,
gnarly. I know,
right?
but
Okay,
yeah,
okay.
it had to be. But, like, still, I was just like, "Damn,
It's
this
real.
this movie like, if you're an animal in this movie, oh, God
You're
bless."
getting it. You're getting it. Yeah, yeah, you're getting it. Yeah, I was thinking a bunch about, like, how real the snakes were and everything, but I
Mm.
think the practical effects were so good because I had to ask myself that question, and
I
so
mean, yeah,
all of those.
the blood in this I feel like this might be the time, like, early '80s when I feel like they kind of perfected what blood should look like. The dark red, you
Mm,
know, tints with
shimmering in the
yeah,
light.
compared to, like, it used to be just like that, like, very generic looking, like, bright red,
Yeah, yeah,
that,
like,
like
almost pink.
yeah, that, like I love a lot of the '70s horror and action stuff, but, like, that I can always tell when that period is because of that, because
Yeah,
it
for
looks more
sure.
like paint than blood,
Yes.
uh, but, yeah, and then finishing up here, let's go for the kills. Which kill was your favorite? Yeah.
I think 2. The one I like the most obviously is, in the end, but I
Mhm.
also really like when he's basically becoming the barbarian and they sort of throw him into the pit, and
Yep.
he's gotta basically fight for his life and then turn into the warrior, and the dude with the sharpened teeth,
Yeah,
uh
the filed teeth, yep.
gnarly, gnarly, gnarly. So I think that's definitely, like, the kill that stuck out to me the most, like, that transformative kill. But then also, spoiler alert, I did not like that that Valeria didn't make it here.
It was
Like,
tough.
"What?
It was
No,
tough, I know.
no."
I thought it was a 50-50 shot once he, put the arrow in that it was gonna be his friend or Valeria, and I
Yeah,
guess dramatically, Valeria is the stronger choice in the end, but still was a
yeah,
bummer. Didn't wanna see her go.
true.
She does get one appearance after that, though, from the afterlife. Thought that was cool.
Yeah,
Uh
Valhalla, she was there with the
Valhalla.
warriors.
Yep, with the shiny, glimmering armor. Thought
Yep.
that was pretty dope. But yeah, I put that because I wasn't expecting that either, where he, like, takes the snake out, I'm like, "What is he gonna do?" And then he's just like what I think he says, like, "trace" or "track" or I don't know. He, like, says something
Mhm.
like, "find," and then, like, the snake becomes an arrow, like, just the transition from reality to fantasy was very smooth, and it didn't take me out like in some other ones where it's like, okay, this guy's powers are snakes.
Yes.
So at this point, anything related to snakes, we know he has some sort of ability with. So I thought that was cool. And then the one thing I forgot that might have been one of my nitpicks too was the guy with the sharp teeth. That was a cool scene,
Mm.
but as soon as got dropped in the pit, he was like half of Arnold's size, and I was like, this guy would stand no
No
fucking
chance.
chance. I
Yeah.
was so like when they introduced the teeth though, I was like, okay, at least they introduced something that would
Yeah,
give
that
him
will
like
be
an
here.
edge. Yeah, because he was not if a one-on-one wrestling match, him and Arnold, no contest. Arnold is killing him, smoking him.
Yeah, I think that's why I like it too, because it's truly like he needs to become a killer and embrace all of his strengths, and in that
Yeah,
scene, I feel like
he's a little
he's soft still. He's
defensive.
like,
He's a little defensive and yeah.
"Don't bite me." Yeah.
That's
Yes.
when you first hear the Arnold
Ow. You
it's
really
like
do.
it's like then and then the sex scene right after that. It's like,
Yeah, the
whoa.
same ADR for sure. So good. Oh, man. Yeah,
Uh,
it was good doing this one.
yeah.
This one was good.
On Netflix now, if you haven't seen it,
Yep,
it
got till the
expires
end of
at
this
the end of the
month.
month, so get on it. Recommend for sure for me, definitely.
Absolutely, absolutely. Anything else you wanna say before we kinda wrap it up?
That's all I got. I didn't have time to get into the special features, but I'm looking forward to seeing the sequel. If it has Arnold in it, I am always down to watch.
Oh,
So
yeah, we'll both try to check it out, and maybe we can circle back and talk a little bit about it now that we've really dug into this world.
yeah, for sure, I'm
Nice.
down.
Nice. Alright, cool. I think that wraps it up for us. Let's remind the people where they can find us. Where can they find you?
Yeah, get your action fix and follow the show at Action Movie Buffs on Instagram. We're almost at 1,000 followers. If we do get to 1,000, we're gonna do something special. We haven't talked about it yet. We're gonna do
But
something special. Some giveaway, some watch along. It'll be something cool.
mhm.
So follow us, tell your friends about us, and then on YouTube, Facebook, and Twitch as well at Action Movie Buffs. Follow me on Twitter at rampage_misfit, and then at my movie pages at misfit_minded on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter.
Yes, and don't, of course, forget to, subscribe to the podcast on Apple and Spotify and leave a positive review. 5 stars, 5 stars, 5 stars. It really helps. And then if you wanna follow me, you can find me on Instagram, YouTube, and Facebook at Shani B Movies. All right. Thanks again for listening, guys. We'll catch you next time on another edition of Movie Buffs. Stay buff.
Boom. Yeah. Yeah.